You're listening to the Hella Well with Danielle show, a podcast taking women of color on a journey exploring all things wellness and travel related. We're all about showing you how to put on your oxygen mask first and creating lasting self-care habits that will free you to travel the world and live the life you truly desire, and not one you have to fake loving. I'm your host, Danielle Washington. Now let's buckle up and start this journey. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Hella Well with Danielle podcast. I'm your host, Danielle Washington. And if COVID has taught us anything, it is that anything is possible. That includes living the life that you truly choose. That means maybe possibly leaving your job. It's leaving a relationship, moving somewhere else, and pivoting in your life. And I wanted to bring up the ideal of pivoting, not just in a job, because most times we think of pivoting in a job, but it could be pivoting your mindset, living your living situation, pivoting in so many different ways. And I've done a couple pivots in my life. I know I'm in a major one right now. And sometimes we get stuck and we get in our own ways because we're like, oh, what about the finances? What will people say? I don't know, all these different things. And so I wanted to bring on Stacy Griner, who is an amazing coach who is really dedicated and truly believes that at any point, especially right now, everyone can live their best life right now. And she's committed to helping women do that. And I feel like I wish I had a Stacy because for me, when I was going through it, I had all these different things. And so I wanted someone to come on and help you figure out how can I pivot? What are things I need to be thinking about? And learn the lessons that she's learned from pivoting so many times in her life, from going from corporate job to starting a franchise to moving to different locations. So I call her the queen of pivoting, and I wanted her to come on and help you all on this pivot. But before I have her come on, I also wanted to mention that it is Women's History Month. We just got out of Black History Month. It felt like it went like that because that's what February always feels like. But I wanted to do something different, because as a woman who is Black, I wanted to kind of doubly celebrate this month. And so what was doing in February, but I'm also doing in the month of March, is I'm offering everyone who signs up for a Reiki session. So if you get one Reiki session, you get another one for free. Because that's my way of saying I want to support my people. And so if you want to make sure you sign up for a Reiki session, go to hellawellwithdanielle.com and you can book your session. All right, let's get into this goodness. Hey, Stacy, thank you for joining me on the Hella Well with Danielle podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you so much.
I'm so excited to have you on here because for me, you are like the queen of the pivot. Like, I just feel like when I met you, you're like, I have this amazing career and I'm about to say deuces. I don't want to give away any of your story, but like, I know for me, when I think about my pivots in the back, when I did something, I was like, I don't really know why I did it. And don't know how I had the courage, but I think listening to you, I feel like there was just something motivational. So I really want you to tell people, like, why did you jump? Like, how did you jump? And why is the pivot so important, especially in this mid-career time frame when a lot of us are like, oh my God, I'm over 30, I need to be thinking about marriage, or I'm over 40, I need to be thinking about stability. And yet we're here jumping. Why? How? Give
Right.
us give us the tea.
Yeah. So I kind of, I would say I was thinking about pivoting probably at least 5 years before I actually took the leap. And when I think back about that, I'm like, do not wait that long and suffer in silence. Don't do what I did. Because the calling had always been there. So yes, I worked in a, corporate legal technology space, worked there for 18 and a half years, long hours, was just the norm since I started the career. And, 5 years, prior to, leaving corporate, I just was starting to really try to figure out like what I wanted to do next. I was really tired of what I was doing. And here's the thing, I didn't really enjoy the work. I just was good at it.
Yeah.
Right. So I created this whole career and became a subject matter expert at something I was good at, but something I wasn't passionate about, something that wasn't even in my purpose wheel at all. And so Once my kids were older and I started getting closer to being an empty nester, that calling to do something that was more meaningful was becoming louder and louder. And on top of that, I was completely burnt out. I was depressed. I was struggling. I was like, why am I doing this? But at the same time, I had the golden handcuffs on. The job was paying well. I was just like, listen, don't mess up a good thing, girl, or what I thought was a good thing, right?
Yeah.
And really devaluing my mental state, devaluing my self care. And what happened was on a random Monday morning in early June of 2017, a colleague came to work, went to a meeting like he normally does, left the meeting early, and then an hour and a half to 2 hours later, we were having to explain to our teams that he was tragically struck by a train. And I throw
Oh
up air
God.
quotes because I'm like, tragically struck by a train. Like, how do you get tragically struck by a train? Like, you know, it's not New York City. Nobody's pushing you in front of the train. Um, but needless to say, this was somebody that I knew, someone who I had talked to a lot, someone who I had referred um, um, coaches to in terms of I was in two triathlons and he was interested in doing one and he seemed really normal. And it really opened my eyes. So for the next 6 weeks, we're just helping our team like work through this whole grieving process. And then one day I woke up and couldn't get out of bed.
Mm.
And that was like the catalyst for me to start really thinking about like, Stacy, you don't want to wake up and it be like a normal day and you've just lost every will to live, right? Because so many of us put on that veil at work. So many of us put on that, we code switch and we put on the face and we've, you know, go into these spaces where we're really doing, work that maybe, like I said, we're good at and pays
Yeah.
well and it connects to our livelihood and it makes sense. And I'm not knocking it, but it doesn't, you know, give you anything else. It doesn't provide you that purpose, that meaning that you were here for. Like,
Yeah.
and so that was really powerful for me. So needless to say, I was out for a while. I took a medical leave. I was out for a while. And I took care of myself and I professionally took care of myself. And again, I would say to everyone is that, don't be afraid to get professional help to help you through these times.
Mhm.
Um, it was like the best thing I did for myself. And I got well. And then I went back to work. And then within 2 weeks, it was like the same thing. And I was like, my God, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing? So I started looking at all this vacation time I had accrued over 18 and a half years. Right. And
Mhm.
realized I literally had like 6 weeks worth of vacation. Like,
Yeah.
like literally craziness. So I started taking some time off. So over the next few months, I started taking time off, and then I was in Guatemala, one of my favorite countries, and it was there that I was just like, "What are you doing? What are you doing? You don't know what you're going to do next, but you know you are smart, you are capable, and you will be able to figure things out. You need to answer this calling." And so I went back to work and I gave my notice. And July 3rd was my last day because July 4th, I wanted to wake up and be free and independent of that life.
Yeah.
And that's what I did.
What are the reasons you think people stay stuck in, like, not making a decision to move to the next chapter? Like, why do we feel like, what are kind of the things that keep us stuck in, should I make that decision to jump or should I not make the decision to jump? Like, I gotta believe there's some commonalities of why people get stuck in that decision-making process when they're thinking about the next chapter.
Absolutely, absolutely. A lot of it is they don't know. Like I say this, I talk about professional equity all the time with my clients because so many professional women who have been working in careers, particularly if you've been there 10 years or longer, or you've been in a career, maybe not the same job, but in a specific career 10 years or longer. And even more so if you're just in that career because you do it well, but not necessarily because it's a passion.
Mhm.
What happens is we put so much value into the role and it becomes a part of our identity. And then we lack the skills to learn how to articulate the value of that experience, the value of all the years of experience that you have, and we're unable to articulate that to others on what we do and what we're good at, and so it keeps us in a paralysis state of not and not doing anything, right? Because we're
Yeah.
afraid we don't know how to do anything other than the thing that we're doing. So I'll give you an example to help people sort of illustrate what I mean by this, right? So a teacher may say you're a teacher, right?
Mhm.
And so you taught seventh grade, right? Seventh grade math, right? And so your identity is that you're a seventh grade math teacher, right? For somebody to kind of pivot into, say, what I teach, which is, you know, providing aspiring midlife, entrepreneurs with the support, the mentorship, the strategy, the training, and really more the safe space to kind of plan that exit,
Mhm.
is really learning how to articulate the seventh grade math teacher. What did you do? Like, how can you take that professional equity and redefine it and reframe it to do something else that you're more passionate about and turn it into, being able to sustain yourself by doing that, right? And so a teacher has tons of skills, time management skills, curriculum development skills, writing
Patience.
skills, right? And so, right, patience, Jesus, right? And so the world has changed fundamentally, work has changed, and there are so many opportunities, right? My mantra, and I tell all of my clients this, is life doesn't shrink as we age. It actually expands to so many more rich opportunities if we just take the time and get the support in order to kind of pull that out of ourselves to really unlock that potential.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we just don't trust ourselves. I think we're so focused in on
Right,
external validation of, what will others say if I'm a teacher and I now want to
right,
go be a balloon artist? Like what will others like
right,
we're so afraid of that, but because we're so focused on what others will think and that external validation, especially in this day of social media being so heavy, that we
right,
don't feel that, oh, maybe what I'm thinking can't be right because it's not quote unquote the norm. And I think we also
right.
get stuck on that feeling of what you were talking about earlier is, well, I have a comfortable life. And I think that was my situation, my job, where the second time I really pivoted. The first time I pivoted was when I moved to Italy. But the second time, I had this great career where I was traveling the world on someone else's dime, going to all these like concerts around the world and, having a amazing life. And I was paid very well, but like you, I kept getting physically and mentally sick, and like I dread going to work
Hmm.
even though I had this great job. People were like, "Well, I don't understand. You are living the best life and yet you're unhappy. How are you not grateful?" But I wasn't, and when I was getting ready to consider leaving, I was like, "But what are you gonna do without the money? What are you gonna do? Like, are you gonna like who's gonna you gotta pay for your own travel?" I'm like, "Are you sure
Hmm.
you wanna leave that?"
Hmm.
And that got
Hmm.
me stuck. And it was I was talking to you beforehand, like, I really don't know what was the decision that really got me out. All I know was it was a day where they were trying to take away my office. And I had all this paperwork and all these boxes because I did events. And I'm like, you're going to put me in a cube and I have all this stuff. And I was so angry. That was the first time
Hmm.
I'm literally, I used to work in Emeryville and in the East Bay near Oakland, and I was taking the BART home to San Francisco, and I literally booked a flight to San Diego, like, on the BART, and I left within 30 minutes of that to get on a flight to San Diego, and it was in San Diego, there was a calling of some sort. It's like, "Girl, get out. Girl,
Right,
get out now. Like, I don't know what you're gonna do, but get
right,
out now." And you
right.
talked earlier about a calling. Like, can you explain what is this calling and like yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think the calling, everyone has it. Like, so
Yeah.
first and foremost, you are valuable, you are worthy, you are deserving. God has given each and every one of us a gift. And sometimes it takes a little while to cultivate that gift, right? But his gift comes to you through a calling, right? So you kind of have something within you that tells you you're meant for something more. You're supposed to do something else. And so the calling might sound like a whisper in the beginning,
Mhm.
right? Especially when you have like, responsibilities like I gotta pay my rent, I gotta eat, all
Right?
these
The
things,
big
right?
ones.
I got my car note coming up, right? Gotta keep the cell phone on, right? So in the beginning, the calling might sound like a whisper because all of your, and I'm throwing up air quotes, needs, and I'm only throwing up air quotes in terms of saying needs, is because needs are very relative, right?
Mhm.
Like, is it really need, right? And so your needs are louder, so you don't necessarily answer the call. But the more inner work that you do, the more work that you do to really connect with yourself, to understand that your happiness, you are deserving and worthy to be happy. Like you are deserving and worthy to want to get out of bed to go to work, right? You are
Mhm.
deserving and worthy of that. And so when you think about that, and it starts to become something really start to connect with on a deeper level, and you start dealing with doing the inner work that's required, then the calling starts to get a little bit louder and louder and louder. And although you say you can't really pinpoint when it was, you really could, because it all comes down to an experience you had that happened, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, wait a minute, that experience made that calling really loud that day, right? And it's like, and for me,
That.
right, it was like, right, right. And like, even when my calling became loud, and we had this tragedy at work, and it really made me re-examine my life and re-examine what I was doing. I still didn't leave for almost a year,
Yeah.
right? But that was the when the calling got to the point where it was so loud, like I could no longer ignore it. And what I also tell my clients is that when you're answering the calling, it requires a faith walk. And a faith walk is hard work. It is
Yeah.
hard because you're not going to have all the evidence to support this walk. And so you have to walk by faith. And a faith walk is hard because we're human and we want tangible things that we can feel, taste, touch, smell, whatever, to make it real to us.
And I hear you on that faith walk because I was like, "Trigger, it's trying to trigger me." I was like, "Trigger alert." But it's one of those things where call it a faith walk, the mindset, like, there's gonna be resistance to doing something new, and
Mhm.
how do you work through and have the mindset to kind of work through the resistance when you are doing something new? Like, what helps you?
Right. So resistance is interesting because, you know, I the question I always ask my clients is like when they feel that resistance, or when they feel like, when someone says, we'll use your example, feeling like you're stuck, right?
Mhm.
Like, okay, stuck. Then let's unpack that a bit, because you have to start questioning you have to question your doubts, right? You have to start questioning your doubts, right?
Mhm.
Because when you start to question your doubts, you try to start to unpack that resistance, right? Like, where is the resistance really coming from? Because it's not like you can't quit, like, not telling anyone here to quit their jobs, because that's a personal journey.
Mhm.
But get support, to help you through the journey. But you need to start to question the doubts that are coming up, to make sure that you're dealing with the right resistance, right? um the resistance might be, let's say you quit this job that, you know I can't find another job, right? That's the resistance. I can't find another job. Well, like, have you tried? Like, have you updated your resume? Like, let's start to unpack that. Like, you have to start questioning the doubt, right? So if or I'll put it to you like this: like, a lot of people will tell me that they don't want to leave their job because they're unsure if they can make the same amount of money, right?
Mhm.
For some reason, we have been conditioned to believe that we are unable to um, to create an income stream unless it comes from a source outside of ourselves, right?
Yep.
And that is a very interesting mindset shift that has to happen because going back to what I talked about, your professional equity is yours. So the job that you were doing, program manager, coder, teacher, doctor, lawyer, um, baker, chef, you leave the job, they don't they that your professional equity doesn't stay with the job, you take it with you. And so when you think of it in that way, then you start to really understand the only thing stopping you from making the same amount of money is you,
Yeah.
because no one's taking your professional equity from you. You
Yeah.
just feel like it has to be tied to someone else giving you the value for it. And so there's a lot of deep work that has to, happen. And that's why a lot with my programs in particular and how I work with people in particular is we spend quite a bit of time in the beginning just on mindset because you have to really release and learn how to reframe your mind. You have to really release old habits, old thoughts, old patterns, and start to believe new things. And how a belief is nothing but a thought that you keep on thinking. So you have to create new thoughts, more powerful thoughts that are in alignment with where you want to go. Because those more powerful thoughts, the more you think them, they become a belief system. And that belief system is going to be the foundation of where you're going to rise.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And so, what are tips that you can give to people to strengthen their mindset during these time frames?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, people underestimate the powerfulness of simple practices. There is not a productivity book out here right now by the world's greatest authors that don't have simple, basic practices that they tell you to do in order to strengthen the mindset,
Yeah.
right? Simple practices like daily affirmations, simple practices like mindfulness, right? Simple practices like having self compassion, right? Self compassion is a big thing for me because all of us struggle with this. We struggle with imposter syndrome and we struggle with really feeling worthy,
Hmm.
right? And so even though we say we're worthy, but this is a daily practice that has to happen, right? And that's the biggest thing. It's like, these small habits and things that even listen to Oprah. She'll tell you the same thing too. What does Oprah do? She talks about affirmation. Well, Oprah got like 10 books on just quotes and affirmations that she reads every day. She goes to her faith-based books, right?
Yeah.
And these are all she writes in a journal. These are all things that are consistently done over and over and over by successful people. And still we're still out there still thinking like there is like this magic bullet, right? It's not, right? It's the practices that you do. So part of it is changing your routines and making it work for you. You don't have to do something exactly like someone else. You figure out what it is that works for you, and then you keep doing it over and over and over and over, right? That becomes
Hmm.
your belief system. That becomes your value system. Make it personalize it to fit you.
And I think that's so important about personalizing it because I think people go in, especially, they go on Instagram or YouTube and then see this guru saying, this is how you do it. And they're like, oh, I have to do it this way, even though it doesn't
Right.
feel right. And so they're going against
Right.
themselves. And I say other people, I've done this as well. It's like, oh, you have to, do your business this way.
Oh,
You have
yes.
to, travel this way. And I'm like, but it didn't
Yes.
feel right, but it was when I started going out on my own and listening to myself and
Right.
owning who I am and
Right.
trusting who I am and that it will work out because I don't know, I just know. I just know that I know it. I showed up differently.
Yeah, yeah. And when you're in your most authentic self, things start to unfold for you because that's your natural state of being. When you're outside of your authentic self, you're going to get resistance. Right? So if you think about I love to think about like how morning routines. Now, I'm not saying anyone shouldn't have a morning routine, but it definitely should be personalized to you. I was trying, like you mentioned, I saw a morning routine, and it was like by the time I finished all that stuff, it was like an hour and a half. I was like,
Right. You're like, why am I doing this?
right, like this don't even align with what I'm trying. And then I become obsessed about it because then I'm like, well, if I don't do it this way, I'm not going to have success. And then now, instead of like, people, or if it's only one way to meditate, right? I have coffee meditation, right? I'm not, I sit down with my hot cup of coffee, and that's how I practice my mindfulness and meditation.
Hmm.
Is my eyes closed and I'm sitting there with my feet? No. But am I meditating? Am I taking mindful moments? Yes. And so do it so that it speaks to you, do it so that it's personalized to you. And, a lot of this is like you understanding how incredibly unique that you are. There is no one like you.
Hmm.
That's the creator's blessing. There is no one like you. So you have gifts, you can bring forth those gifts. There is no, I don't care how, I always say this too, because I help people create online businesses, right? Or really to take their professional equity into an online business, right? And I tell them, they're like, the market's saturated. No, 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 no. There's billions of people on this planet.
Right.
And now the way the world has shifted, work is, we in uncharted territory. We are creating our new workforce from the last couple years of how the pandemic has shifted all of us. And so we need to really reimagine what work is. And then particularly those of us who are in midlife, I'm so passionate about for those of us in midlife because we come from a different generation, where we're taught differently, right? So my
Hmm.
generation, I'm Gen X. My generation was taught to stay at the job for 25 years and then retire, and then what? Like we're living till like we're 90 years old now. Then what? Like what else do
Exactly.
you want to do, right? And work can be different. Work can be meaningful. Work can be, and at this point in your life, a lot of us are not like, for me, I'm not chasing money, right? Not that I
Yeah.
don't love money. Let's not get it twisted. I love money. Money loves me. Money is energy. I want it to flow to me, but I'm not chasing it, right? Money is, I'm attracting money. Money is coming to me and flowing to me easily because I'm now walking in my most authentic self, showing up as my most authentic self. And then in turn, that is really helping me be in a space that doing the meaningful work is more important to me than money. So it's a completely different mindset shift.
And you talk about money being energy. What do you mean by that? I know what you mean by, but I want you to explain that to people.
Yeah. Yeah. I just feel like money is just energy in a sense that vibrationally, there is no, the creator created this world, it is full of abundance. Um, the scarcity mindset that there is not enough, just now I'm saying release it, guys. And I know it's hard to do, right? It's hard to do when your bills need to be paid, things like that. But once you recognize money is just energy, it's just and it's going to show because money is going very digitized, right? Which if that don't tell you it's energy and that, you thinking, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like it's like this esoteric type of thing, right? Because when you're vibrationally in your most authentic self and you're doing things that really mean something to you and it makes you feel good, abundance just flows that
Yeah.
way. And abundance can come in many ways. Richness comes in many ways, not just money, but money is just one of those ways. But
Mhm.
all of a sudden you have opportunities to speak. Like you reach out and you have this platform. This is a blessing, right? That you are able to provide this platform to reach so many people, and that we've connected on that vibrational energy, right? Money is energy, and I'm saying money, but like vibrational energy, that we come together to bring this message to people, right? And it's going to help people.
Yeah.
It's going to help people find themselves and define themselves and redesign their lives. And that to me is what I mean by like money is energy. Like people are equated with money, but money are just, it's just energy. It's the same
I
way.
love that. I love, love, love. I'm always talking about energy, especially as a Reiki master. So I'm like, money is energy.
Hmm.
I definitely agree with that. I vibe with that because everything is energy. And once we start
Everything's
realizing
energy.
that, we show up a little bit differently. Speaking of showing up
Yeah,
differently,
try to do something. And then just to tap on that one last time before you go on, try doing something when your vibration is low. That'll tell you something, right? How
exactly.
difficult it is to do something when your vibration is low, right? If you ever have low energy, low malaise, you're not in a good space, you've got stress on your mind, you can't let it go. Try doing something. You will not be successful because the energy's not there.
And that kinda goes to where I was gonna go. It's like, you talk about when your energy is low and your vibe is low, it's really hard to do things. Think about those times when we're quote unquote paralyzed in a job because it is what it
Mhm.
is, and that's just like, I can't leave because I have XYZ. How did you recognize outside of the physical things before you, like, actually left your job that you were burnt out?
Yeah, so burnout manifested for me in my body, right? So I stopped doing
Mhm,
the things I love to do. I'm very like I've done Ironmans. I'm like a distance type of endurance athlete. I stopped doing those type of things. I stopped hanging out with friends. I stopped, um, I started just becoming like a little bit of a loner, right?
mhm.
And you know, I started losing sleep. I started losing weight. My hair started to fall. Like it was all these physical changes, but emotionally, the changes were. I'll never forget. I have this one picture that I go back to all the time. That was in the height of when um, I was like completely burnt out and depressed, and it was a picture of me holding my grandson. It was my
Mhm.
first grandbaby, and I could see like I look, like I'm endearingly holding this beautiful baby, right?
Mhm.
But when I look at the picture, I could see sadness in my eyes, like
Mm.
behind, and that just, ooh, it just hurt me so much. And it's a picture that I go back to every now and then. Sometimes, even when I'm having hard days, because one thing I want to leave with everyone too is that this is a daily practice.
Yeah.
This is the mindset work is a daily practice. I'm not going to sit here and say I don't, I never struggle with imposter syndrome because that's not true. Every time I have to send out a proposal, I'm sitting there,
Right?
like, okay. And then I click the button and then I'm like, until I come back, like, But the only difference is I've learned the tools now not to have that spiral me out of control, right?
Mhm.
Or spiral me into a place of low vibration. I've learned to just let it go and understand that life is happening for me and not to me.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
so just being that in that right vibration. And so when I think about all of those things and I think about the journey and how we deal with imposter syndrome and we deal with the stress at work and the burnout, for me, the other thing that was really key was that I no longer, because I was uninspired in the workplace, I wouldn't get new projects. I get difficult projects. And
Mhm.
I recognized that that was something that was like, okay, in some aspects that should feel great. Like I'm getting all the big projects, but the big projects were the difficult projects. And I recognized that I was like no longer as creative. I was just like a person that could, yeah, I was good at it, fix things, but not really anything that was really passionate. And so I started to talk to my high achieving, mid career professionals. When you're uninspired at work, when you have apathy, you're like, you know, these projects don't really, or if you're in a position where you've been passed over so many times for the promotion,
Yeah.
sometimes we look at that and we're like, I got passed over again. Girl, that might just be your calling. Like, you don't need
Yeah.
that. You don't know what you just, you know, and then, so it's a lot of ways to work with your mindset. So you're reframing those, things when they're happening to you, but also being present and aware so that you're not ignoring the signs of your calling, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I
And
would
I
say.
don't and I don't think the pivot always is about your career either. It could be a pivot in your
No.
marriage. It could be a pivot in
Hmm.
your living situation and how you show up. It could be a pivot in your mindset. So I want people to make sure that it's not just a pivot in your your career and I'm moving from this career to another career, but there's so many different
Right.
ways that we pivot. I feel like in this period of, COVID quad, we're not post COVID. I don't know why I'm gonna sit here and lie and say post COVID. We ain't near post COVID. That would have been a lie to even say out of my mouth. But in this COVID time frame,
Mhm.
I have pivoted. I've pivoted from, having the travel business to other things, but not even that. I've pivoted my mindset and how I'm showing up. I've pivoted into being more of mindful. I've pivoted into recognizing that I am a healer and I have these certain
Right.
gifts that I've been hiding. And like you talked about earlier, the calling has been yelling at me like it has a megaphone. It's like,
Right.
sis, knock, knock,
Sis,
knock, sis.
sis, sis. Yes,
And
yes,
it's
yes.
been really, really loud, and I couldn't ignore it. And so
Right.
I just wanted to kind of point that out as well. But one thing I wanted to ask you is, what would you have done differently in the midst of any of your pivots, and what questions should people think about when considering the ideal of pivoting?
Yeah, so when I think about, because I've just had another recent pivot, like I can like
Exactly.
I just pivoted. I mean, like what? Um, but yeah, well, so when I think about pivoting, I always think about, when I'm starting to feel resistance in the current thing that I'm doing, and it doesn't feel like it's easy anymore, like it
Mhm.
doesn't feel like it's aligned anymore. One or two things might be off, and um, it may be in the way I'm energetically feeling. And I know this might sound a little woo because that's not like tangible, right? But you should learn to trust your gut, right? You should trust your gut. And so when I think about that, I'm thinking about when I'm ready to pivot, how do I check in with myself?
Mhm.
Like, am I happy? Right? Does this thing bring me joy? How much stress am I experiencing? Am I waking up? I'm always like this. If you wake up and you got a lot of tension in your neck and shoulders, it's very likely that during your time of rest, and I'm throwing up air quotes here,
Yeah.
your body is like you're stressed. You ever be under a lot of stress? This has happened to me. I'll share my personal experiences. Like I could tell when I'm out of alignment, and I can tell when I'm stressed because my brain won't shut off. So even when I'm sleeping, I'm like fretfully sleeping or fitfully sleeping. So I'm waking up and I'm having all these different thoughts about making payroll, thoughts about paying the lease on this, thoughts about doing this, doing that. And like I just came out, I just sold my stretch studio that I owned. And believe me, you want to talk about some stress? I bought that stretch studio right in the middle of the pandemic.
Mhm.
We built out the space for like 4 months, our permanent space. We moved into our space for the studio February 19th, 2020, and March 16th, 2020, I had to shut down. So all the work I had done for the previous 8 months, getting that studio, building brand awareness, building out the
Mhm.
physical space, all of that came to a halt. And you want to talk about somebody who was like wall sliding? Was like, oh, yes, right. And I could have pivoted then. I could have pivoted and quit then, right? But something told me like this is for this community. This is a holistic healing experience. It's for the community, and so I stuck with it, right? But then, and believe me, we I stuck with it, and I'm so proud to say I quadrupled our revenue year over year the
Wow.
last 2 years
In the midst of a pandemic, that's beautiful.
in the midst of the pandemic, right? And so but then it became a point where I recognized I had taken it as far as I could take it, right?
Mhm.
I could take it in terms of where my energy was, right? And I had missed doing the type of work that I really, really wanted to do, which is helping midlife professional women answer their calling. And so I sold the business. Now, why did I make that pivot? Because energetically, it was time. And that's what
Yeah.
I'm talking about when people say how do you know when it's pivoting? That it's all the pivot is like the calling. All of it is tied together because you won't be able to ignore it. And then as soon as I did that, And mind you, it's still in the process. We're still working through things. But as soon as I made that decision, and I don't know about you, because it definitely felt like the same thing when I made the leap out of corporate and
Mhm.
just, I didn't even have a plan. I just left. Where I was like, well, I'm out. Right. But I woke up, and it was a reason why I chose July 4th as my July 4th will forever be my Independence Day
I
because
love
I
you.
woke up free.
Yeah.
I woke up free, free to design the life I want to live, free to design it on my terms, right? And it's literally changed my world. Just being my most authentic self and listening to that calling and walking that faith walk. That faith walk is hard, y'all. I'm not gonna lie. But I have coaches, there's people, a support group, we all, but you can do hard things and you are not given that calling unless it's for you,
And I
right?
love
And
that
so
you
that's
say
the faith as well.
that you're not given that calling unless it's for you, but also that we need support. And because I do think what
Mhm.
we do, no matter what it is, support is key. So, and I know you are someone who is supporting so many people through this pivot in all aspects of this life. How can they work with you on their next chapter in their life?
Yeah, so I'm actually going back to what I really, really love, which is high touch, high results private coaching. So I really, I'll build community, and yes, I'll make connections with people and all of that. But I really, really, really love the high touch, high results private coaching one-on-one. And I love that for midlife, mid career professionals
Mhm,
because there's a couple of things that they say all the time is that they need the support, they need the mentorship, they need the training, they need the strategy, and they need the safe space. And when they say safe space, they're talking about the privacy. I can't tell you how many people, professional women who I've worked with, who want to keep it a secret even from their family that they're deciding to leave
mhm.
their job because they know that other people are going to have opinions. So that's what I provide. I provide one-on-one private coaching, high touch, high results, and it's really helping them with the support, the mentorship, the training, the strategy, and the safe space to design that next chapter in their lives, whether it's on their personal level or on
Mhm.
us launching a business level. We're going to get you back to the place where you are thrilled to get up in the morning, get out of bed, and do the meaningful work that that sets your soul on fire, really, you know?
Yeah,
And so that's
I
what I
think
do.
that's important. So I'll make sure that everyone gets access to how to reach you and all your links and stuff like that. Because I think
Absolutely.
we need you, and there's so many people, especially during this pandemic time, people are waking up and they're hearing the calling louder than they did before. And I
Mhm.
think, but they're still kind of like, well, okay, I'm hearing the calling. So what do I do next? And I think you are a great source for what to do next. And so I honor and thank you for doing what you do for the community and the collective and just for being here on the show. I always love to ask people
Thank
some quick
you.
fire questions at the end. And so whatever comes to your mind, just answer the question. So, the first question I
Okay.
always like to ask is people like, "When did you know you were Black?"
Wow. I don't know. Like, I think I've always felt like I was Black. Maybe. I don't
Okay.
know. That's a good one. When did I know I was Black? I've always been surrounded by people who look like me from birth. And so I would say probably as early as maybe like 4 or 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
What
That's a good one,
uh,
girl. Ooh.
gets easier? Aisle or window as my fellow traveler?
I
Aisle
am
or window?
a window. I am a window gal. On domestic flights, on international flights, I like an aisle seat.
I understand that one. What's always in
Mhm.
your travel bag?
Oh, what's in my travel bag? AirPods, hand sanitizer, lip balm, a travel case for water, and some snacks.
You got a lot up in that bag, girl. I love you. What brings you joy in the midst of hard times? What's your go-to to kind of pick you up?
So these days, the last 4.5 years, it's these little videos of my grandbabies, and they're small.
Aw.
They're probably like 8, 9 months old, and they're giggling, and it's still that the first laughs when they really like giggle and they're trying to gasp for breath. Like
Yeah.
that is my pickup all the time. I send it out to. It's so funny. I send it out to friends sometimes. Like you can't not feel better listening to this little baby laugh, that little gut laugh. So that's my pick me up.
I love it. And what does living hella well mean to you?
Living hella well means for me to be able to live life on my terms.
Mhm.
Um, I have a much simpler life now, and I love it. I love it. Simple. I constantly tell people life is simple and good, and we are blessed.
And on that note, thank you all for being with us. Thank you, Stacy, for being on the show and imparting us with such magical wisdom. And I hope to see you guys next week.
You.
Ciao. Thanks for joining us this week on the Hello Well with Danielle show. Make sure to visit our website, hellowellwithdanielle.com, where you can subscribe to our show on iTunes, Spotify, and Amazon Music and never miss an episode. Also, you can follow us on social media at Hello Well with Danielle on Facebook and Instagram, and Hello Well Danny on Twitter. And if you like hella love the show and got some good nuggets out of it, know that I'm not too proud to ask for you to please leave a rating or review on iTunes so that we can continue to expand our reach and help other women of color. Again, thanks so much for listening, and I hope to see you next week. Ciao.